online, or we got to log in first?
We've just started now, David.
Where's Tim?
Hello, welcome to CripChat, your weekly podcast on everything disability. Yeah. We're doing tonight, as usual, is David, Ibby, and Tim. So, Tim, what is our topic tonight?
Tonight's topic is intellectual disability, and with that, it's also making
Tim,
sure.
I can't hear you well.
Yep. Can you hear me any better if I sit closer? Can everybody else hear me?
Yes, you're good, you're good.
Oh, good. All right, so where was I? Our topic is intellectual disability and making sure that we in the disabled community aren't
Tim,
being
can you speak into the mic?
Is it your audio only, David? Maybe you need to take your earphones out, plug them back in or something.
David, sign out and then log back in.
I'll sign out and log back in. Why?
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Sorry, Tim, what was that?
Sorry, people listening. We have some technical issues.
Yeah, the joys of technology.
The joys of it's all good. Sorry, Tim.
Yeah, so you guys can hear me at the normal volume, yeah?
Yeah, all good.
Yeah, I think it was just his end playing up.
Yes, Tim.
Yeah, go on first, Jonathan. What were you saying?
So, tell us more how we firstly, what are the main issues faced by people with cognitive disability?
Yeah, some issues that are faced, there are also issues that are commonly experienced. You'd probably experience them yourself being a person with a speech impairment, but that people tend to exclude you in conversation. And in particular, if you have someone with you who is not disabled, people who are trying to speak to you will tend to talk to the person who's more able, I guess. And with that, people with intellectual disabilities, when they do speak, if they speak verbally, that is, their ideas and thoughts are often just brushed off by people, and people don't really take the time to actually engage with the person and see them as the whole person, not just labeling them as somebody who's not worth a conversation or interaction with.
Yeah, all flow as well. Yes, people with intellectual disabilities. Sorry, Tim. they're often labeled as being slow, and they won't respond quickly, which I find rude and intimidating. But yeah, in saying that, yeah, you just gotta acknowledge them for who they are and engage with them in conversations.
Yeah. And when we say intellectual or cognitive disability, it doesn't always mean that the person is slow, so to speak. It could also just be something like autism, or it's a term to describe any sort of disability affecting the brain. It doesn't necessarily mean someone's intelligence is involved, but even then, it's important to remind people that intelligence isn't a measure of whether someone's a person or not. You should treat everybody as equal, whether you believe they can understand you or not. Just engage with people and treat them like nothing's wrong with them, because that's ideally what we want as people with physical disabilities. And we also need to advocate for those in the disabled community who can't advocate for themselves because they struggle to communicate or cannot speak for themselves.
Yeah, true. True.
Yes. And I guess also another point is we need to ensure there are more resources in easy English so we don't exclude people with cognitive disabilities.
Yeah, that's a good point you make. I see that
Now I
you're
can
back
hear you.
now, David. Can you hear me better now?
Much better.
Yeah, I think you might have just had a dodgy connection at first. But I'll
Okay.
bring you up to speed if you want.
Yeah.
We were just discussing how people with intellectual disability are discriminated against because, for instance, they don't want to talk directly to the person with a speech or intellectual disability, and they tend to talk to somebody who's with them and exclude them from conversation. And we were also on about how just because somebody has an intellectual disability or their intelligence is affected, it doesn't make them any less of a person.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a summary of what we were on about in the time that you were.
Is it just intellectual disabilities or other disabilities also?
Mainly we're discussing intellectual, but it kind of overlaps because it's more the domain of like communication.
Yeah.
So, being denied, I guess, access in a social environment, like being able to socialize like everyone else. I guess that's a right that we all deserve.
I guess it happens with other disabilities also because, like, someone that's blind, also they ask the person with them. You think that's good. They'll ask which is better for him. Why don't they ask me?
Yeah.
I know what I
Yeah,
want.
exactly. It also happens to people without intellectual disability. But I think the thing that sets intellectual disability apart from those of us with physical disabilities is that their communication is affected. So these people, when people say something or do something they're not quite happy about, they can't really communicate that. Or if they do communicate it, people will ignore them or brush them off and say, "Oh, that person's just having a behavior." Or they'll say like rude stuff like that when the person might be conveying that they're unhappy with the situation, and people just misinterpret that. So I guess we're trying to raise awareness of the different communication styles that people possess, and a good example of that would be how we're all like, it's not really my domain because it's more speech therapy. So I'll try explain it simply. But we all communicate in a few multi ways. So, for instance, you can communicate through writing, typing, or texting, and you can also use your voice. And I guess making people aware that
and
there
also
are different ways to communicate. Yeah, go on. Yeah, sign language is a great example of one of the ways you can communicate without using your voice. And also with that, there's typing, digital things, people who communicate through tablets. So if you do meet someone with an intellectual disability and they don't speak verbally, it's not to say that they don't speak at all, and you should take the time to learn to speak with them. And also, I'd like to say that people who have communication difficulties, not all of them have intellectual disability. A good example here is Jonathan. He has a cerebral palsy accent. I refer to the term as because people tend to understand that. But he is one of the most business-minded people I know. He's a normal.
Stop it now, you're embarrassing me. But really, I can't speaking from a personal perspective is when I tell some people I'm a uni student, they're automatically surprised because they hear my speech and there's a stereotype that people who speak slowly are cognitively impaired. But I guess my point is we shouldn't judge a book by its cover. So even if you do support someone with Down syndrome or autism low functioning, don't assume that they can't make decisions for themselves. They may just need assistance in understanding the quote unquote world we live in.
Yeah, that's right, Jonathan. Don't judge a book by its cover, and they might understand you, but they just need a bit of assistance in different ways. So they'll be understanding.
Yeah, exactly. We can all communicate one way or another. It's just a matter of finding a way. I honestly believe there is no reason that any human couldn't be able to communicate something with someone. There's many ways to do it, and being aware of that, I think that's an important thing to keep in people's mind, that not everybody speaks verbally, and verbal speech isn't the be all and end all or the marker of intelligence. Like it can also go the other way. Your example, Jonathan, of people assuming that you're not all there just because of how you speak. For instance, with people with autism and stuff, some of us who are labeled quote unquote high functioning, although that is a term that's coming to an end of use now because it's got other connotations attached to that, but we'll go into that later. But yeah, people tend to think that, oh, you're not disabled or you don't have the condition because you don't sound like it. So yeah, it comes back to not judging books by cover, whether you're judging them for better or worse.
And also, with people with vision impaired, they think they're blind and deaf at the same time. So they shout to them sometimes.
Yeah, or like people raise their voice and stuff.
Yeah, it's like, seriously, I'm here. I'm not across the road.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's funny how like that just seems to be a general thing that people with disabilities receive, and like that's what I've noticed. Because even when I'm out in my chair and stuff in the community, people raise their voice or talk to me in a way that you'd talk to like a preschool or a toddler, and it's just weird to see how people can change their behavior like that just based on how you look.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, any other points that we have to cover?
I'm curious to hear from Ibby because he's been quiet tonight. So, Ibby, do you have any thoughts you would like to raise?
Look, I agree with everyone on this. It's people with intellectual disability as well as the people with disability in general are often mistreated. Don't have the same respect that those who are not with disability. I agree with him. People they talk down on us. They talk to us like we're preschoolers. And often their attitude and I guess the way that they talk to you is different to the way they talk to a person who doesn't have a disability. It should not be that way, but the reality it is that way. It can be I guess unfair for the person with a disability, especially those that do have an intellectual disability or a cognitive disability as well. It's just not good for their health. So how do we well just I guess we as human beings should just acknowledge them and make them feel part of the group. Doesn't matter what disability you have. We should all just sit there and talk to one another like humans. Because at the end of the day, we are human. And you need to remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If there's someone that can't that you find is got a different disability, I've met people on the train that are deaf, and then they told me, do you need? They asked me if I need any help. I go, well, I'm okay. I go, they go, you've got a disability like me. I go, what's your disability? She goes, I'm deaf. I go, how you reading my, how you hearing what I'm saying? They go, I'm reading your lips.
See, there's a lot of people have talent. They have hidden talents, but they're not recognized because all people see is a disability. Not the ability, but the disability.
Yeah, that's a good point you raise. Life with a disability, it can make you quite skillful in some areas. Like, yeah, lip reading, it's super difficult, and whoever can actually pull it off and understand what people are saying, I have the most respect for them. But I feel like we should also try encourage the use of sign language more, so people don't have to resort to learning lip reading as their only source of communication. Because from what I've heard from quite a few friends in the deaf community, they feel like they're quite isolated because that's the only way they can understand their world, is they have to make all the effort.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tim, do you think it would help if hypothetically sign language or Auslan was offered as an elective in high school?
Yeah, I think it would benefit to have it in a lot of educational institutions at different levels. I think teaching it to primary school children would be really beneficial, because I know already schools teach spoken languages. So to speak something that would allow all Australians to be able to speak with their fellow Australians, whether they're hearing or not, would be really beneficial. And it also, it's not just a benefit for the deaf community. It's useful if you're trying to communicate from afar. Divers and stuff use hand signals to communicate. It's got many uses. So you could potentially have programs starting in kindergarten and those really young age ranges. Also, yes, offering an elective in high school would be a really good idea. And I think, well, in my opinion, this is really important, because these are the people who go on to work with people with disabilities. Is healthcare workers in particular in university should learn some basic form of ASL, in my opinion. That would be a really useful thing.
Yeah.
I
I have to say that with the ABC in the recent CVD pandemic, they've been really good at promoting sign language, but I guess part of why Australian disability exists is to create media for people with disabilities, and I'm just wondering, in the future, maybe we could look at getting an online interpreter to join us to make sure the podcast is accessible to anyone who tunes to watch or listen if your vision is bad.
Yeah, I think that would be a really good idea.
The more accessible, the better for everyone. It's all about inclusion.
Yeah, it's all
Yeah.
about inclusion. Also, with people who visually impaired, if there's menus, at least put the menus on the internet and be it more accessible via the phone. That way,
Oh, yeah.
we can read the menu. I wouldn't have to ask all the time.
Yeah, but for the broadcast, I think, yeah, like Jonathan was saying, make it more accessible for people with different disabilities.
Yeah.
So, yeah, make it inclusive for everybody.
I've got a story of when I first went to work at a factory with people with all disabilities. The first person, the manager that introduced me to the first guy there, he goes, "This guy is blind and deaf."
Yeah.
He introduced me to him. He walked me. He did a few different sign languages on his hand, and he said, the guy said my name.
Yeah.
He said, "David." Okay.
Oh, wow. Nice, nice. See, yeah. And that's what we're trying to aim for here. A more inclusive society. So, yeah, it's all good, David. Thanks for sharing the story.
Yeah, exactly. We all benefit from an inclusive society.
Yeah.
Any final words, or should we wrap it up? Wait.
Look,
Is there
like
any
we
people
mentioned
watching
throughout the
that have any
podcast.
questions?
Sorry, David, what are you saying?
Any people watching? Any questions?
I think we got a
Shall we have a comment from Chantal? Thank you for watching. First of all, she says the deaf community have interpreted for TAFE and uni and study in general on the NDIS if it's on the plan. That's
cool.
good to know, but I guess what I'm advocating for is some people don't view sign language or as a proper language. And when they see it on TV, some idiots, I mean, ableists wonder why an interpreter is standing next to, the Prime Minister or Premier. So I guess we need to break down that ignorance and tell the general community that Iceland is like Arabic or Hebrew is a language in its own right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, so I think regarding final points, just that intellectual disability doesn't make a person any more or any less of a human, and to just treat all people with dignity and equality.
You can be
You know, I guess
you'll be surprised how much knowledge they have.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
skills as well. So yeah, always including engage with them. Don't ever leave them out, and always give them the same level of respect as people without a disability.
And just the final word from me is people with cognitive disabilities have a valid and unique perspective on life and society, and people shouldn't be prejudiced just because they may express themselves differently. They should be open-minded enough to strike up a conversation.
So we've got to be open-minded to open up a conversation with them.
Yeah, exactly.
True.
And don't be afraid to talk to them.
Exactly. Good point.
Yeah.
Okay, I know this is kind of so strange seeing how I advocated from for a open dialogue, but we've reached the end of another episode of CripChat, your weekly podcast on everything disability. Remember, share, like, and subscribe, and we'll be here every Friday on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Join us next week for more CripChat.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.